Hey guys, tonight we're going on a journey, a very peculiar journey into the realm of a thought experiment. Imagine you're lying on the grass looking up at the sky. The clouds drift by, soft and white, and the air feels normal. You take a deep breath, and you don't think twice about it. But what if that simple life-giving air was suddenly different? What if in a silent cosmic blink, the oxygen in our atmosphere doubled? Right now, it's a comfortable 21%, a gentle hum that keeps our world in balance. But in this story, that hum becomes a roar, surging to 42%. It's a change so profound, it would rewrite the rules of existence itself. And for a moment, just for a brief fleeting moment, everything would seem more vibrant, more alive. Then the real chaos would begin. A friendly warning, you probably wouldn't survive it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you settle in, I'd love to know where you are right now. What city? What country? And what time is it for you? Let me know in the comments below. Now let's close our eyes and take that first dangerous breath in a world reborn. In this sudden radical shift, the first thing we'd notice isn't the air, but the fire. The ancient fundamental force that has shaped our world since its dawn. Fire at its core is just a rapid dance of oxidation, a passionate embrace between a fuel and oxygen. Right now, that dance is a waltz, a controlled and predictable ballet of heat and light. But in a 42% oxygen world, it would become a frantic fiery tango. A tiny spark from a static shock on a doorknob could ignite the dust motes floating in the air. A campfire would no longer be a cozy gathering, but a roaring inferno, its flames reaching for the sky with an impossible ferocity. Forest fires, which we already struggle to contain, would become unstoppable waves of destruction moving across landscapes with the speed of a storm. They would not just consume the trees and the undergrowth, they would vaporize them, leaving behind nothing but scorched earth and a sky thick with smoke. We often think of fire as an external force, a danger to be managed. But in this new reality, it would be woven into the very fabric of existence, a constant humming threat. This brings us to a core scientific concept, the rate of combustion. It's the speed at which a substance burns, and it's directly proportional to the concentration of oxygen in the air. With our current 21% oxygen, things burn at a certain pace, allowing us time to react, to fight back. In our doubled oxygen world, that pace would accelerate dramatically. Think of a simple birthday candle. You light it, and it burns with a steady yellow flame. In our new atmosphere, that same candle would flare to life with an almost explosive intensity, its flame a blinding white-hot spear. This principle isn't just theoretical. We see it in practice. In hospitals where patients are given pure oxygen fire, safety is a paramount concern because a small spark can lead to a catastrophic blaze. Imagine that principle applied to the entire planet. Every electrical wire would be a potential fuse, every car engine a ticking time bomb. Our entire modern infrastructure, built on the assumption of a stable atmosphere, would be rendered obsolete in a single moment. But the most poetic and terrifying change would be the fire's role in the carbon cycle. Right now, the carbon cycle is a grand, slow-moving symphony. Plants absorb carbon dioxide, and when they die, they slowly decompose, releasing that carbon back into the soil or the air. This process can take decades, centuries, or even millennia. But in a world of high oxygen and rampant fire, that cycle would become a blur, a frantic, aggressive rhythm. Forests, the great lungs of our planet, would become tinderboxes. A single lightning strike could incinerate an entire forest in minutes, releasing all the stored carbon back into the atmosphere in a violent exhale. The Earth, once a patient gardener, would become a reckless pyrographer, painting its landscapes with ash and charcoal. This rapid turnover of carbon would have unimaginable consequences, creating a feedback loop of destruction and rebirth. We'd see a world of constant violent change where no ecosystem could ever truly settle. The sheer scale of this fiery transformation brings up a philosophical question that science still grapples with. What is the true nature of stability? We think of our world as a stable, predictable place. The seasons change, the sun rises, the tides ebb and flow. But is this stability just an illusion? A temporary state held in check by a delicate balance of forces? The moment we alter one of those forces, like the amount of oxygen in our air, the illusion shatters. The world reveals its true nature, a chaotic, energetic system, perpetually on the brink of profound change. The very foundations of our existence, the laws of physics and chemistry, are not just rules, but delicate compromises. And we, as a species, are nothing more than a fleeting expression of that compromise. This new dangerous world is a stark reminder of that. It forces us to confront the idea that the normal we so cherish is an extremely thin skin over a cauldron of potential. Consider for a moment the strange and little-known scientific fact about a historical event known as the Carboniferous period. This was a time roughly 300 million years ago when the Earth's atmosphere had a much higher oxygen content, perhaps as high as 35%. The world then was a land of giants. Dragonflies with wingspans of over 2 feet soared through the air, and massive lumbering arthropods roamed the land. This high oxygen environment allowed for the existence of such colossal creatures because their respiratory systems, which were less efficient than ours, could still get enough oxygen to power their huge bodies. The high oxygen also contributed to the immense, sprawling coal forests of the time. But even then, with oxygen levels still lower than our hypothetical 42%, fire was a constant threat. Evidence from the fossil record shows widespread charcoal deposits, suggesting that wildfires were a common and devastating occurrence. This historical parallel gives us a chilling glimpse into our future. It tells us that this world of doubled oxygen isn't just a fantasy. It's a return to a more volatile, more dangerous version of our own planet's history, a memory etched in stone and ash. The atmosphere itself would change, not just in its composition, but in its very feel. The air would become thicker, heavier, a tangible presence. We would feel it as we moved, a slight resistance, a constant pressure. The sound of a whisper would carry farther, sharper. The wind would feel less like a gentle caress and more like a solid push. And the sky, oh, the sky would be a different canvas. The increased density of the atmosphere would scatter light in new ways, shifting the hues of our sunsets and the deep blue of our noonday sky. It's an aesthetic change, to be sure, but one that speaks to a deeper truth about the interconnectedness of everything. A single microscopic change at the molecular level cascades outward, touching the grandest of scales, from the smallest dust particle to the vast expanse of the heavens. It's a beautiful, terrifying thought. The world we know is not a collection of separate pieces, but a single, breathing organism. And we just gave it a jolt of pure adrenaline. We must be prepared to witness the consequences. The fire, a character in our story, has already begun its performance, a wild, chaotic dance across the land. But what of the silent observers, the great green engines of our planet? As the air around them thickens with a new, dangerous power, the plant world would experience a profound and immediate shift. We're used to seeing plants as slow, patient creatures, their lives measured in the gentle unfurling of a leaf or the slow reach of a root. But in this new world, they would become speed demons. Their lives lived in a dizzying rush. Photosynthesis. The miraculous process by which plants turn sunlight and carbon dioxide into energy is heavily influenced by the availability of carbon dioxide. But it's also a process that, at its core, is an ancient, delicate ballet with oxygen. Right now, a plant has to work to find the carbon dioxide it needs, and it must also manage a less efficient side process called photorespiration, a chemical mistake, where it accidentally uses oxygen instead of carbon dioxide, wasting energy. But in our doubled oxygen atmosphere, the sheer abundance of it would change the equation entirely. The very chemistry of life would become more efficient. With a higher oxygen concentration, the air would carry a richer, more powerful energy. Imagine a car engine that suddenly receives a constant supply of high-octane fuel. It would run faster, hotter, and with more power. Plants would experience a similar phenomenon. Their metabolic rates would soar. Growth that once took a year might now happen in a single month. Trees, the slow-growing elders of our forests, would shoot up with an almost unnerving speed, their branches stretching towards the sky in a desperate, accelerated race for light. The lush, tangled rainforests of the world would become impossibly dense, a labyrinth of fast-growing vines and gargantuan leaves. The desert would not turn green overnight, but the plants that survived there would become more tenacious, more robust, their life cycles condensed into a furious sprint. This phenomenon is not just a poetic fantasy. It's rooted in a core biological principle, the relationship between oxygen, carbon dioxide, and plant growth. While plants primarily need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, the presence of oxygen is also a key factor in their respiration, the process by which they use stored energy. In a world with double the oxygen, the plant's ability to respire would be turbocharged. They could access their energy reserves more quickly, allowing for this explosive growth. We can see a small-scale version of this in greenhouses, where farmers use controlled environments to increase plant growth. By enriching the air with CO2 and controlling other factors like light and temperature, they can dramatically speed up the growth cycle of their crops. Our thought experiment takes this a step further, applying that same principle to the entire planet, but with a different variable and a much more chaotic outcome. The very structure of our planet's great biomes would be rewritten. The great grasslands of the world, like the American prairies or the African savannas, would no longer be vast open spaces. They would become dense, towering thickets of grass reaching heights we've never seen before. The delicate balance of predator and prey would be thrown into disarray as animals accustomed to open sightlines found themselves lost in a forest of blades. A field of wheat, a symbol of human sustenance and order, would become a towering, unruly jungle, its stalks as tall as a man, its grain ripening at an unprecedented rate. This accelerated growth would be a mixed blessing. On one hand, it would mean an incredible abundance of biomass, a veritable feast for the world's herbivores. But on the other, it would create an environment of extreme competition where the fastest growing plants would choke out their slower neighbors, leading to a massive loss of biodiversity. This leads us to a strange, almost unsettling question that botanists and ecologists ponder. Is there a biological limit to how fast a plant can grow? We think of growth as a gradual cumulative process, but what if given the right conditions, it could be almost instantaneous? What if the potential for explosive growth is already encoded in the DNA of every seed, every spore, just waiting for the perfect oxygen-rich conditions to unleash itself? The fossil record offers a tantalizing hint. During the Carboniferous period, the forests were not just vast. They were made up of species that were much larger and faster growing than many of our modern trees, a world of giant ferns and towering club mosses. The high oxygen levels of that era, combined with a different climate, created a world where the very definition of plant was a much more colossal thing. It's a reminder that the world we see today is just one chapter in a much longer, more dramatic story of life on Earth. And then there's the fire. The accelerated growth of the plant world would create an immense amount of tinder. In our new reality, every forest would be a massive, sprawling haystack. The lush greenery would be filled with dry dead wood and leaves from the plants that couldn't keep up, and this would provide a constant fuel source. A single spark, a single lightning strike would no longer just burn a few trees. It would unleash a conflagration of unimaginable scale and intensity. The heat would be so immense that it would create its own weather-generating massive updrafts that would suck in more oxygen, creating a self-sustaining cycle of destruction. The fires would not just burn, they would consume, turning entire forests into ash in a matter of hours. The ground, no longer protected by the canopy above, would be exposed to the elements, leading to massive erosion and a further destabilization of the ecosystem. This creates a terrifying and beautiful paradox. The very thing that fuels the explosive growth of the plant world, the doubled oxygen, is also the thing that makes that growth so profoundly fragile. Life in this new world would be a constant, desperate race against oblivion. A plant would grow, flourish, and die in a fraction of the time its entire existence, a brief, brilliant flash against a backdrop of potential fire. This is a scientific truth that we often overlook. The very forces that sustain life also have the power to destroy it. Entropy. The great cosmic tendency towards disorder is always at work. And in our new world, the high oxygen atmosphere would act as an accelerant to this process, speeding up not just growth, but also decay and destruction. The world would be a canvas of constant frantic change, a landscape of rebirth and collapse, where nothing lasts forever, not even for a day. As the fires rage and the plants reach for the sky in a manic sprint, another part of the story begins to unfold, one that crawls, flies, and scurries through the undergrowth. This new oxygen-rich world is a dreamscape for the smallest creatures among us, the insects. We often think of insects as an endless buzzing backdrop to our lives, but in this new reality, they would take center stage, becoming the improbable titans of a new age. Right now, a housefly is just a housefly, a humble mosquito, a mere nuisance. But what if they were to grow to the size of your hand? Or a cat? The answer lies in a strange and beautiful quirk of their biology, a principle that has kept them small for millions of years. The secret to their size is not in their bones, for they have none. It's in their very breath. Insects don't have lungs like we do. They breathe through a network of tiny tubes called tracheae that crisscross their bodies, delivering oxygen directly to their tissues and cells. It's a remarkably efficient system for small creatures. But there's a catch: the diffusion of oxygen through these tubes is a slow, passive process. The air has to physically move through these tubes to reach the inner parts of the insect's body. The longer the tube, the less efficient it becomes. This simple physical constraint places a hard limit on how big an insect can grow. It's the reason why a praying mantis isn't the size of a dog. Their tracheae just couldn't get enough oxygen to their massive bodies to sustain them. But in our doubled oxygen world, this limitation disappears. With the air carrying twice the amount of oxygen, the diffusion process becomes far more effective. The passive movement of oxygen is enough to supply a much larger body. A dragonfly, which right now is a marvel of delicate engineering, would grow to an astonishing size, its wingspan stretching out like a small airplane. Imagine the humming sound of its flight, no longer a soft buzz, but a deep resonant hum that vibrates the air around you. Spiders would become a presence, not just a fleeting shadow in the corner of your eye. They would weave webs strong enough to ensnare a small bird, their eyes glistening in the dense oxygenated twilight. The humble beetles, the quiet scavengers of the forest floor, would become armored giants, their carapaces gleaming like polished metal as they lumbered through the thickets. This explosive growth would not be limited to the insects of today. We would see a return to a forgotten era, a scientific echo of the Carboniferous period, the same time we touched upon earlier. Back then, with oxygen levels approaching 35%, the world was home to a terrifying creature called Meganeura, a giant dragonfly with a wingspan of over 2 feet. There were also massive millipedes, scorpions, and other arthropods that would make our modern insects look like mere whispers. Our new world, with its even higher oxygen levels, would likely give rise to creatures even more colossal. The very definition of insect would be rewritten from tiny skittering things to powerful dominant predators and herbivores. This raises an interesting philosophical question that is as much a mystery as it is a fact. What unseen potential for size and scale lies dormant within the very DNA of life, waiting for the right conditions to be unleashed? Are the insects of today merely smaller, more humble versions of the giants? They could be their genetic code, a kind of memory of a colossal past. The immediate ripple effect on the ecosystem would be chaotic and profound. The balance of predator and prey would be completely upended. A frog, once a predator of flies and mosquitoes, would now find itself on the run from gargantuan versions of its former prey. Birds, which we'll get to later, would have to adapt to a new world of flying armored predators. The very food chain would be stretched and reshaped, creating new connections and breaking old ones. The giant insects would be able to process food more efficiently, their high-octane metabolisms fueled by the dense air. This could lead to a massive consumption of plant life, with swarms of colossal grasshoppers, stripping entire fields bare in a matter of hours. The sheer biomass of the insect world would likely overshadow that of the mammals and birds, making them the true rulers of the new land. We must also consider a lesser-known scientific truth, the evolutionary trade-off. Evolution is a game of compromise. A creature can't be good at everything. A hummingbird has incredible flight, but is tiny. A whale is massive but can't live on land. In our world, insects trade lung efficiency for their trachea system, which works well for their small size and allows for incredible agility and speed. But in our hypothetical world, this trade-off is reversed. The high oxygen allows them to become massive, but what would they give up? Perhaps their flight would become less agile, their movements more ponderous. Or perhaps their life cycles, already accelerated by the increased metabolism, would become even shorter. A brief, fiery life lived in a furious rush. The world would be a constant humming battlefield of giants with life and death, playing out on a scale we could barely imagine. The very air would be filled with a new kind of song. No longer just the gentle rustle of leaves or the distant call of a bird, but the constant, low-frequency hum of giant wings, the clicking and whirring of colossal exoskeletons, the deep guttural sounds of insect communication. The world would feel more alive, more teeming with life, but also more alien, more unsettling. The familiar sounds of our world, the gentle symphony of the natural world, would be replaced by a cacophony of giants. We as humans would feel smaller, more insignificant than ever before. We would no longer be the dominant species. We would be just one of many forced to navigate a world ruled by creatures from a forgotten age. With the fires burning and the insects growing to mythical proportions, our gaze now turns to the other great branches of the animal kingdom. What of the creatures we share our world with? The mammals, the birds, the reptiles? Their story, unlike that of the insects, is not one of sudden explosive growth. Instead, it is a tale of a more subtle, yet equally profound transformation. These animals, with their complex lungs and high metabolisms, would be uniquely positioned to take advantage of the new atmosphere, but not without their own set of challenges. The core scientific principle at play here is the relationship between oxygen and metabolism. All large animals, from a soaring eagle to a slumbering bear, rely on a constant supply of oxygen to fuel their cells, to power their muscles, and to keep their bodies warm. Our own bodies, for example, are constantly working to take in oxygen and turn it into energy through a process called cellular respiration. This process is the very engine of our existence. With the atmosphere now supercharged with oxygen, this engine would run at an entirely new level of efficiency. The very air, once a gentle necessity, would become a powerful elixir. Imagine a large mammal, say a wolf, in this new world. Its heart, its lungs, its entire cardiovascular system would suddenly be working with a level of efficiency it has never known. Every breath would be a profound infusion of energy. A wolf's hunt, which today is a grueling, exhausting chase, would become a more sustained, relentless pursuit. It could run faster for longer, its muscles fueled by a constant stream of high-octane air. But this efficiency would come at a cost. A faster metabolism means a greater need for food. The wolf would have to hunt more, eat more to sustain its supercharged body. The delicate balance of the food chain, already disrupted by the gargantuan insects, would be thrown even further into chaos. Birds, too, would undergo a dramatic change. A bird's respiratory system is already a marvel of evolution, a highly efficient one-way flow system. that allows them to extract a great deal of oxygen from the air. In our new atmosphere, this system would become almost too efficient. A soaring eagle could glide for hours on the thermal updrafts, its body effortlessly powered by the rich air. But here, a strange and little-known scientific paradox comes into play, the oxygen paradox of flight. While a high-oxygen atmosphere would provide a great deal of energy for a bird, it could also make their bodies more susceptible to oxidative stress, a kind of cellular rust that can damage tissues and accelerate aging. It's a delicate balance, one that the birds of our world have evolved to manage. In this new world, they would have to find a new equilibrium, a new way to fly without burning out. This brings us to a fascinating, yet unanswered philosophical question. Is there an upper limit to the efficiency of life itself? Can a biological system become too efficient too fast? Is there a point where the sheer speed of a process like a hyper-accelerated metabolism becomes a liability rather than an advantage? The animals of this new world would be a living experiment in this question. Their bodies would be pushed to the very edge of biological possibility. Their lives lived at a frantic pace. They would be stronger, faster, and more powerful than their ancestors, but perhaps also more fragile their lives, measured in a fleeting blaze of glory. Consider the largest creatures, the whales of our oceans. Even their existence would be touched by this change. The water in our oceans would absorb more oxygen from the atmosphere, turning the shallow coastal waters and the upper layers of the deep ocean into a much richer, more vibrant soup of life. This would lead to a massive bloom of plankton and krill, the foundation of the marine food web. The great whales, the filter feeders, would find themselves in a world of unimaginable abundance, their feeding grounds overflowing with food. They could grow larger, their bodies powered by an endless feast. But the deep ocean, the great dark abyss, would remain a sanctuary, its cold, crushing depths largely untouched by the atmospheric change. It would be a world of stark contrast, a surface teeming with life and a deep, dark world that continues to exist as it always has. The human body, too, would be a site of profound change, though we would be ill-equipped to handle it. Our lungs, designed for a 21% oxygen world, would be overwhelmed. The sheer volume of oxygen would lead to oxygen toxicity, a condition where too much oxygen can damage our cells and organs, particularly the lungs and the central nervous system. This would be a painful, terrifying process, a slow-motion drowning in the very thing that is supposed to give us life. We would be like a delicate machine suddenly hooked up to a power supply with a voltage far too high, our circuits frying our systems, failing. Our story in this new world would likely be a very short one. This is a powerful reminder of a fundamental truth of biology. Evolution is not a race to perfection, but a process of adaptation. The creatures of our world, from the smallest ant to the largest whale, are perfectly adapted to the conditions of our planet as they are now. Change, even a change that seems beneficial on the surface, is a dangerous and unpredictable force. The animals of our hypothetical world would be a testament to this, their bodies, a strange mix of incredible power and profound vulnerability. Their existence, a fleeting, beautiful, and terrifying story of what could have been. With the land in a state of chaotic, explosive change, our journey now takes us to the vast, silent world beneath the surface, the oceans. The land with its fires and its giants is a world of frantic activity. But the ocean, a great patient body that covers most of our planet, would respond in a more subtle, yet equally profound way. The life within it, from the smallest microbe to the largest leviathan, is a different kind of life, one that has its own unique relationship with oxygen. The fundamental principle at play here is a simple but powerful one, the solubility of gases in water. The air we breathe is a mixture of gases, and the oxygen in that air is constantly dissolving into the surface of the ocean, a gentle, unending exchange. The amount of a gas that can dissolve in a liquid is directly related to its concentration in the atmosphere above it. So, as our atmosphere doubles its oxygen content, the ocean's surface waters would begin to absorb a proportional amount. It would become a richer, more vibrant soup of life, a kind of a high-octane fuel for the marine ecosystems. This would lead to an incredible and immediate bloom of marine life. The phytoplankton, the microscopic single-celled plants that form the very foundation of the oceanic food web, would suddenly find themselves in a world of unimaginable abundance. Like the plants on land, their metabolism would be supercharged, their growth accelerating to a frantic pace. The surface of the ocean, particularly in the sun-drenched coastal waters, would turn a brilliant, impossible green. These blooms would be so vast and so dense that they would be visible from space, a swirling, vibrant testament to the new reality. And with the phytoplankton would come the zooplankton, the tiny animal-like creatures that feed on them. The krill, the small shrimp-like crustaceans, would multiply in their billions, their swarms so thick that they would turn the water a cloudy pink. This is a beautiful, terrifying image. On one hand, it's a world of pure, unbridled abundance, a biological utopia where life proliferates at an unprecedented rate. But on the other hand, it's a world on the brink of collapse. These massive blooms of life would consume nutrients from the water at a furious pace. When they die, their bodies would sink to the ocean floor, decomposing and consuming all the oxygen in the surrounding water. This could lead to massive dead zones areas of the ocean, where the oxygen has been completely depleted, suffocating any larger marine life that wanders into them. The oceans in this scenario would become a world of extremes, a vibrant, teeming surface and a silent, dead abyss just below. This raises a deep philosophical question that oceanographers and biologists grapple with. Does a superabundance of life necessarily lead to a stable, healthy ecosystem? Or is balance and even a degree of scarcity a necessary ingredient for a system to thrive in the long term? The oceans in our new world would be a living laboratory for this question. They would be a world of feast and famine, of brilliant, vibrant life, followed by sudden, catastrophic death. The gentle, ancient rhythms of the ocean would be replaced by a frantic, chaotic pulse. Consider a lesser-known scientific fact, the Great Oxidation Event. This was a period over 2 billion years ago when the Earth's atmosphere first became rich in oxygen, a byproduct of early photosynthetic bacteria. This event was not a gentle transition. It was a cataclysm. The oxygen was initially toxic to much of the anaerobic life that existed at the time, leading to a mass extinction on a global scale. It was a time when the very air became a poison. While our hypothetical scenario is different, it serves as a powerful reminder of how profoundly a change in atmospheric oxygen can alter life. It's a testament to the fact that oxygen, which we see as the source of all life, can also be a force of immense destruction. The deeper parts of the ocean, the great crushing depths that lie in perpetual darkness, would remain a world apart. The oxygen that dissolves from the atmosphere takes time to circulate into the deep. The slow, patient currents of the deep ocean, which can take thousands of years to complete a full circuit, would ensure that the abyssal plains and the deep-sea trenches would remain largely untouched by the atmospheric change, at least for a very long time. This would create a strange refuge, a world where the ancient rules still apply, a quiet sanctuary from the chaotic frenzy of the surface. The creatures of the deep, the bioluminescent fish, and the strange alien invertebrates would continue their lives as they always have, their world a silent echo of a time before the change. But even this sanctuary would not be entirely safe. The rapid proliferation of life on the surface could lead to a massive marine snow event, a constant, gentle fall of dead organic matter sinking from the surface. This would provide an endless feast for the bottom-dwelling scavengers, but it would also carry the risk of changing the very chemistry of the deep ocean, introducing new elements and new challenges to a world that has existed in near-perfect stasis for millions of years. The world below, too, would be changed not by the breath of the sky, but by the relentless chaotic cycle of life and death from the world above. The two worlds, once separate, would become inextricably linked by the very abundance of life. With the land ablaze and the oceans in a state of chaotic bloom, our story now turns to the canvas above us, the sky. We're accustomed to a sky that is a gentle, familiar presence, a deep blue dome by day and a velvet tapestry by night. But in a world where the very composition of the air has been fundamentally altered, the sky too would be transformed. It would become a more dynamic, more vibrant, and more dangerous character in our narrative. The first and most immediate change would be a shift in its color. We see the sky as blue because of a beautiful, simple phenomenon called Rayleigh scattering. This is the process where sunlight, as it enters our atmosphere, collides with the tiny molecules of nitrogen and oxygen. These molecules are particularly good at scattering the shorter blue wavelengths of light in all directions, making the sky appear blue to our eyes. In a world with double the oxygen, the density of the atmosphere would increase, and there would be many more of these oxygen molecules to scatter the light. This would lead to a more intense, more vibrant scattering effect. The noonday sky would likely be a deeper, more profound shade of blue, a color that would seem almost impossible in our current world. And the sunsets, oh, the sunsets, would be a spectacle of fiery, impossible hues. As the sun dips below the horizon, its light would have to travel through even more of the dense atmosphere, scattering the blue light out of the way and leaving behind a brilliant saturated palette of reds, oranges, and deep purples. But the atmosphere is not just a canvas for light. It's also a great churning engine of weather. And this engine would be running at a furious new pace. The core scientific principle at play here is the relationship between air pressure, temperature, and atmospheric dynamics. The increased density of our new atmosphere would lead to higher air pressure at the surface, and this would have a cascading effect on our weather systems. Storms would become more powerful, more frequent, and more violent. A simple thunderstorm, which today is a localized event, would become a roaring tempest, its lightning more frequent, and its rain more intense. The sound of thunder, a deep rolling rumble in our world, would become a sharp concussive crack. The air itself a more efficient medium for carrying sound. The most dramatic change would be in the nature of hurricanes and tornadoes. These storms are born from a confluence of heat and atmospheric instability. In our high-oxygen world, the increased atmospheric energy would act like a powerful accelerant. A hurricane, which today draws its power from the warm ocean waters, would become an impossibly vast spinning vortex, its winds reaching speeds that would be unimaginable in our current world. The sheer kinetic energy of these storms would be immense, capable of leveling entire cities and reshaping coastlines in a matter of hours. Tornadoes, the violent swirling funnels of our land, would become more numerous and more destructive, their winds tearing through landscapes with a new terrifying power. This brings us to a deep and fascinating question that meteorologists still ponder. What are the true upper limits of a storm's power? We measure storms on scales like the Saffir-Simpson or the Fujita. But are these just human constructs? Temporary benchmarks for a phenomenon that has a far greater potential for destruction. In our doubled oxygen world, we would be forced to confront the true terrifying potential of the atmosphere, a potential that is currently held in check by the delicate balance of our planet's chemistry. A less known but equally profound change would be in the electrical properties of the air. The increased density of the atmosphere would make it a more efficient insulator, but the sheer energy of our new weather systems would lead to more frequent and more powerful discharges of lightning. A lightning bolt is a spectacular discharge of static electricity, and in our new world, these discharges would be a constant humming presence. The sky would be alive with a new kind of light, a continuous ballet of static and electricity. This would not just be an aesthetic change. It would have profound implications for our technology, with sensitive electronics being constantly at risk from atmospheric interference. The air itself would feel different as you stood outside a heavier, more tangible presence. It would be a constant reminder of the profound change that has occurred. The air would be a character in our story, a powerful temperamental force that could give life in one moment and take it in the next. The world would feel more alive, but also more on edge, as if the very atmosphere itself was holding its breath, waiting for the next dramatic event. The beautiful deep blue sky would be a constant unsettling reminder of the raw, untamed power that now lies just above our heads. As the fires burn, and the oceans bloom, and the sky above us pulses with a new dangerous energy, we must turn our attention to the very process that drives this chaos evolution itself. We often think of evolution as a slow, patient process, a gradual change over millions of years, an endless gentle sculpting of life. But in our doubled oxygen world, this process would be supercharged, a frantic, aggressive race towards a new kind of existence. The world would become a nursery of evolution, a hothouse where new species emerge and old ones vanish in a blink of a geological eye. The core scientific concept at play here is the principle of natural selection. Life in all its forms is a constant struggle for survival and reproduction. Those individuals with traits that are best suited to their environment are more likely to survive and pass on those traits to their offspring. In our current world, the environment is relatively stable, and the pressures of natural selection are constant, but not extreme. But in our new chaotic world, the environment would be a relentless, unforgiving force of change. The plants that grow the fastest, the insects that can adapt to the new dangerous world, the animals that can find food in a landscape of constant flux, these are the ones that would thrive. This would lead to an incredible and almost unimaginable explosion of biodiversity. With the high-energy, high-oxygen atmosphere, the very process of mutation, the small random changes in our DNA that are the raw material of evolution, would likely accelerate. The increased metabolic rate of all life forms from bacteria to bears could lead to a higher rate of cellular division and therefore a higher chance of a copying error, a mutation. Most mutations are harmful, but in a world of such rapid and extreme change, even a strange or seemingly useless mutation could suddenly become a life-saving advantage. A new species of plant that can photosynthesize more efficiently in the thick air, a new type of insect that can withstand the intense heat of the fires, a new kind of mammal with an even more efficient respiratory system. These would all be born and tested in the crucible of our new world. This brings us to a deep and profound philosophical question. Is evolution an elegant, beautiful process of refinement? Or is it a brutal, chaotic process of trial and error? The answer in our new world would be a resounding both. It would be a process of incredible beauty as new life forms more powerful and more adapted than their predecessors emerge from the chaos. But it would also be a brutal, merciless process, a constant and unending cycle of extinction and creation. The species that are not equipped to handle the new environment would simply vanish, their genetic legacy wiped away in a fiery, oxygenated blink. The world would be a graveyard of the past and a cradle for the future, a constant humming reminder of the fleeting nature of life itself. A little-known but fascinating scientific fact is the concept of punctuated equilibrium. This is a theory in evolutionary biology that suggests that evolution doesn't always happen at a slow, constant pace. Instead, it proposes that species can remain in a state of stasis for long periods, and then, in response to a sudden and dramatic environmental change, they can undergo a rapid burst of evolution with many new species appearing in a relatively short amount of time. Our doubled oxygen world would be a perfect living example of this theory. The change would be so sudden and so profound that it would force life to evolve at an accelerated, almost frantic pace, creating a world that is unrecognizable in its diversity and strangeness. The very concept of a species would become fluid, a moving target. In our world, a species is a well-defined group of organisms that can interbreed. But in our new world, with the rapid pace of evolution and the constant pressure of environmental change, we would see a much more blurred, much more dynamic picture. We would see new hybrids, new variations, and new branches on the tree of life appearing with an almost dizzying speed. The world would be a constant living experiment, a testament to the incredible resilience and adaptability of life. But for all this new life, there would also be an incredible amount of death. The species that are perfectly adapted to our 21% oxygen world would suddenly find themselves in an environment that is a poison to them. The slow-moving, lumbering creatures, the plants that take years to grow, the insects that can't handle the new heat, they would all be wiped away in the face of the new reality. The world would not just be a cradle for new life. It would be a great filter, a brutal culling of all that came before. The air which gives life to the new would be the very thing that takes life from the old. With the engines of evolution running at a frantic pace, we must now dive deeper from the grand scale of ecosystems and species to the most fundamental level of all, the cell. The story of our doubled oxygen world is not just a tale of fire and giants, but a story of a silent, microscopic revolution. The very building blocks of life, the cells that make up every plant, every animal, would be profoundly and immediately affected. The core scientific principle that governs this change is the process of cellular respiration. This is the miraculous, intricate dance that happens inside every one of our cells, where oxygen is used to break down glucose and other molecules to release energy. This energy, in the form of a molecule called ATP, is the universal currency of life, powering everything from a thought in your brain to the beat of your heart. In our 21% oxygen world, this process is incredibly efficient, but in our new 42% oxygen world, it would become turbocharged. The cells would be able to generate energy at an unprecedented rate, a constant humming pulse of pure power. Imagine a single human muscle cell. In our current world, it uses oxygen to contract and relax, allowing you to walk, to run, to live. In our new world, that same cell would be able to contract with a new, impossible strength. Your muscles would feel stronger, more resilient. Your mind would feel sharper, more alert. The very sensation of being alive would be magnified, an overwhelming, frantic hum of energy. But this incredible power would come at a profound cost. A concept that is both a scientific fact and a philosophical riddle: oxidative stress. Oxidative stress is like a kind of cellular rust. The process of using oxygen to generate energy is not perfectly clean. It creates byproducts called free radicals, unstable molecules, that can damage the DNA, proteins, and lipids inside our cells. In our current world, our bodies have evolved a powerful arsenal of antioxidants molecules that act as cellular firefighters to neutralize these free radicals and keep the damage in check. It's a delicate balance, one that keeps us alive without us even thinking about it. But in our new high oxygen world, the sheer number of free radicals would increase dramatically. The cellular firefighters would be overwhelmed, unable to keep up with the constant accelerated production of these damaging molecules. The cell, once a marvel of efficiency, would become a site of constant low-level damage. This raises a deep and unsettling question that biologists and philosophers alike still ponder. Is aging simply the cumulative effect of a lifetime of oxidative stress? Is the slow decline of our bodies, the gradual loss of our youthful vigor, a natural consequence of the very process that keeps us alive? In our new world, the answer to this question would become frighteningly clear. The accelerated oxidative stress would lead to an accelerated aging process. A person in our doubled oxygen world might live a life of incredible energy and power, but that life would be a fleeting, brilliant flash. Their bodies would age faster, their cells would break down more quickly, and their lives would be measured not in decades, but in a frantic, glorious sprint towards a premature end. A lesser-known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of certain deep-sea organisms like tube worms that live in environments completely devoid of oxygen. They have evolved an entirely different anaerobic metabolism, a life that exists without the need for oxygen. They are a living testament to the fact that oxygen is not a universal necessity, but a powerful double-edged sword. It is the fuel of our existence, but it is also a poison, and the story of life on Earth is in a way the story of how we learn to manage that poison. Our new world would be a world where that delicate balance is shattered and the poison becomes a force of immense destruction. The very structure of our DNA, the elegant spiral that holds the blueprint of our lives, would be under constant assault. The free radicals in their frantic search for stability would damage the genetic code itself, leading to a higher rate of mutations. While this could be the raw material for the rapid evolution we discussed earlier, it would also be a source of incredible risk. Most mutations, when they occur in a single organism, are not beneficial. They are often the cause of diseases and cellular malfunctions. In our new world, the silent, invisible war inside our cells would be fought on a new, more dangerous front, a constant battle against the forces of entropy and decay. Life in this world would not just be a gift, it would be a constant, desperate struggle against its own internal contradictions. As we witness the frantic dance of life and death on a cellular level, our journey now takes a step back, far back in time. We must look at the past to understand the future of our doubled oxygen world. The history of our planet is not a gentle, unbroken line. It is a tapestry woven with threads of quiet stability and sudden, violent upheaval. Our current situation, a world transformed in a cosmic blink, is not without precedent. To truly grasp the scale of the change, we must look at the scars of the past. The core scientific principle we must explore is paleoclimatology, the study of past climates and their effects on life. Scientists acting as detectives of deep time use clues preserved in ice cores, rock layers, and fossils to piece together the dramatic story of our planet. These records tell a tale of a world that has been many things: a frozen snowball, a steamy hothouse, a land of sprawling jungles, and a world where the very air was a poison to some and a source of life to others. The story of oxygen is central to this narrative. The current 21% is not an eternal constant. It is the result of a long, often brutal history. The most famous and devastating of these historical changes is the Great Oxidation Event, a period over 2 billion years ago, when early photosynthetic bacteria began to pump a new corrosive gas into the atmosphere. This new gas, oxygen, was a toxic poison to the anaerobic life that dominated the planet at the time. It was a mass extinction on a global scale, a biological cataclysm that wiped out countless species and changed the course of life forever. But for the survivors, the organisms that learned to use oxygen to their advantage, it was the dawn of a new age, a time when life could become more complex, more energetic, and more diverse. This historical parallel gives us a chilling yet hopeful glimpse into our future. It tells us that a sudden change in oxygen, while devastating to the existing order, is also a powerful engine for a new kind of life. But the story doesn't stop there. We also see evidence of a similar, though less dramatic, oxygen shift during the Carboniferous period, the same time we talked about with the giant insects. The fossil record from this period shows an increase in atmospheric oxygen to around 35%, a direct result of the massive sprawling forests and the burial of their organic matter. The world then was a land of giants and a land of fire. The high oxygen levels fueled massive, widespread wildfires, leaving behind a clear and unmistakable trail of charcoal in the geological record. These charcoal deposits, found across the globe in rocks from that era, are a testament to the power of fire in a high-oxygen world. They are the scars of the past, a warning from deep time that our new world, with its rampant fires, is not an impossible fantasy, but a historical echo. This brings us to a profound philosophical question that historical scientists and paleontologists still grapple with. Does history repeat itself, or does it simply rhyme? Is our current crisis, this sudden doubling of oxygen, a direct repetition of the past? Or is it a new and unique event that simply shares some of the same themes? The answer is likely somewhere in between. The circumstances are different. The species are different, but the fundamental principles of chemistry and biology remain the same. The laws of nature do not change. The past, in this sense, is a kind of mirror, a way for us to see the potential of our future. It shows us that the world is more resilient and more volatile than we often give it credit for. A lesser-known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of oxygen isotope ratios in ancient rock formations. By analyzing the ratio of different oxygen isotopes, oxygen-16, oxygen-17, and oxygen-18 in ancient rocks, scientists can determine the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere at different points in Earth's history. These subtle chemical fingerprints, preserved for billions of years, are the silent witnesses to the dramatic story of our planet's atmosphere. They are a reminder that even the air we breathe has a history, a long winding and often violent history. The great extinctions of our past, the mass die-offs that have reshaped the tree of life, were often caused by a sudden profound change in the environment. An asteroid strike, a massive volcanic eruption, a dramatic shift in climate. Our hypothetical world with its doubled oxygen is a different kind of cataclysm, a self-inflicted wound. It is a change that comes not from without, but from within, a silent internal revolution of the very air we breathe. The scars of the past tell us that the outcome is predictable. A world of mass death and mass creation. A world where the old order is wiped away and a new, more powerful and more dangerous order takes its place. Our journey into the past is not just a lesson in history. It is a prophecy of the future. The history of our planet is a story of life and death, of creation and destruction, but it is also a story of what lies, dormant, waiting. As the atmosphere thickens with a new dangerous breath, our journey must now turn to a silent ancient world that has been buried and forgotten for millennia. We must look at the waking of the sleeping giants, the ancient viruses and bacteria entombed in ice and rock, whose time has finally come again. The core scientific principle here is a concept called cryopreservation and deep time. We know that life in its most basic forms can survive in a state of suspended animation for an incredibly long time. Bacteria and viruses in particular are masters of this. They can be frozen in glaciers, buried deep in permafrost, or trapped in ancient cave systems, waiting for the right conditions to reanimate. Right now, this is a theoretical risk, a distant, almost science fiction possibility. But in our doubled oxygen world, that possibility would become a terrifying reality. Imagine the vast, sprawling permafrost of Siberia, a land that has been frozen for tens of thousands of years. This frozen ground is not just dirt and ice. It is a repository of life, a kind of biological time capsule. Within this frozen earth lie the bodies of mammoths and ancient bison, and within those bodies and in the soil itself lie the viruses and bacteria that existed in a world long before us. In our current world, as the planet warms, some of this permafrost is beginning to melt, and we are seeing the occasional release of these ancient microbes. But in our new high-energy world, where the weather is more violent and the planet is in a state of chaotic flux, this melting would be accelerated dramatically. A massive heat wave, fueled by the supercharged atmosphere, could melt a whole section of permafrost in a matter of weeks, unleashing a torrent of ancient pathogens into the world. This brings us to a deep and unsettling question that virologists and historians ponder. Are the great plagues and pandemics of our history simply a matter of bad luck, or are they a constant lurking threat, a kind of biological clock waiting to be reset? In our new world, this question would be answered with a terrible certainty. We would be faced with a whole new category of diseases, pathogens that our immune systems have never seen before, and for which we have no immunity. A bacterium from the time of the mammoths, a virus from a world with a different climate and different biology. These would be a silent, invisible army marching out of the permafrost, a biological echo from a forgotten age. A lesser-known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of giant viruses, a category of viruses that are so large they were once mistaken for bacteria. They are often found in ancient environments, like deep ocean sediments and permafrost, where they have been in a state of stasis for millions of years. In our new world, these giant viruses and others like them would be unleashed. They would be a unique and terrifying challenge, a new kind of biology that we would be completely unprepared for. Our modern medicine, our entire understanding of disease, is based on the pathogens of our current world. In our new reality, that understanding would be rendered obsolete in a single, devastating moment. The immediate impact on our health and the health of the planet's animal life would be catastrophic. A new plague with no known cure would spread with a terrifying speed. The very air, which we now think of as a source of life, could become a carrier for death, a silent, invisible threat. The high-oxygen environment, which we discussed as a source of energy for life, could also be a source of life for these ancient pathogens, allowing them to replicate and spread with an unprecedented speed. The world would be a biological battlefield, a constant war between the old life and the new, with a new kind of silent, invisible enemy. The thawing permafrost would also release another sleeping giant, methane. Methane, a powerful greenhouse gas, is trapped in vast quantities in the frozen ground. In our current world, the slow release of this methane is a major concern, but in our new high-energy world, the rapid thawing of the permafrost would release this gas in a massive, explosive torrent, creating a feedback loop of destruction. The methane would further accelerate the climate change, creating more heat, which would melt more permafrost, which would release more pathogens. It would be a catastrophic cascade, a perfect storm of environmental and biological devastation. We would have woken a sleeping giant, and it would not be a benevolent one. As the ancient diseases stir from their slumber and the permafrost melts, our journey takes a turn towards the most complex and mysterious phenomenon of all consciousness and intelligence. We've seen how a doubled oxygen world would reshape the physical world, from the fires that burn to the cells that hum with frantic energy. But what would this new reality do to the minds of the creatures within it? Could a change in the very air we breathe lead to a burst of intelligence and a new kind of awareness? The core scientific principle we must explore is the relationship between oxygen brain function and neuroplasticity. The human brain, a magnificent and delicate organ, is a voracious consumer of oxygen. Though it makes up only about 2% of our body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of the oxygen we breathe. This constant high energy demand is what allows our brains to think, to feel, to dream, and to create. In our new oxygen-rich world, the brain would suddenly be running on a much more powerful fuel. The neurons, the tiny cells that are the building blocks of thought, would be able to fire faster, more efficiently, and with more power. This could lead to an immediate and perhaps overwhelming increase in cognitive function. Imagine for a moment what this might mean for the planet's animal life. An octopus, a creature already known for its incredible intelligence and problem-solving abilities, might become even more cunning. A dolphin, a species with a complex social structure and a language we are only beginning to understand, might develop a level of communication that is 1,000 times more nuanced. The crows, with their famous ability to use tools and remember faces, might become even more adept at manipulating their environment. This is not a simple increase in brute force. It is a change in the very fabric of thought. The increased energy in the brain could lead to a rapid increase in neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. In our current world, neuroplasticity is the engine of learning and memory. In our new world, that engine would be running at full throttle, allowing for a new kind of rapid intuitive learning. This leads us to a profound philosophical question that has haunted humanity for millennia. Is intelligence a gift of evolution, a happy accident, or is it a potential that lies dormant in all life, waiting for the right conditions to be unlocked? Are the animals of our world, with their simple thoughts and their instinctual lives, merely a smaller, less potent version of the incredible minds they could be? In our doubled oxygen world, this question would be put to the ultimate test. We might see a world where not just one species, but many begin to awaken to a new level of awareness, a new kind of consciousness. The world would no longer be a place of instinct and survival, but a place of thought and philosophy, where the birds and the beasts ponder the meaning of their new frantic existence. A lesser-known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of oxygen-induced neurogenesis in some species. Neurogenesis is the process of creating new neurons in the brain, and it's something we once thought was impossible in adults. But we now know that it happens in certain parts of the brain, and it's a key part of learning and memory. Studies have shown that in some species, a higher concentration of oxygen can actually stimulate this process, leading to the growth of new brain cells. While this is not a universal truth for all species, it gives us a tantalizing hint of what is possible. In our new world, this process could be happening on a global scale, creating a planet filled with not just new life, but new kinds of minds. The human mind in this scenario would also be affected, but in a more complex and dangerous way. While our brains would certainly be running with a new frantic energy, our bodies would be failing. We would be a beautiful and tragic paradox, a species with minds of impossible power, trapped in bodies that are dying from the very air that fuels those minds. Our thoughts would be a blaze of glory, a frantic, beautiful, and brief fire against a backdrop of a world that is moving on without us. Our minds would be a testament to a potential that we could never fully realize, a final brilliant spark before we vanish from the stage of evolution. The world would be a symphony of new kinds of thought. The old animal instincts of survival and procreation would be replaced by something more complex, more nuanced. A pack of wolves would not just hunt, they would strategize. A family of elephants would not just remember their kin, they would remember their history, their lineage, their place in a new chaotic world. The world would be a tapestry of intelligence, a beautiful and terrifying mosaic of minds, all awakened by the same dangerous breath. We would be a silent and perhaps forgotten witness to the dawn of a new kind of thought, a new kind of consciousness, a new kind of world. As the planet's many species, from the smallest insect to the largest whale, begin to grapple with their new high-energy existence, our story must now turn to the most fragile and complex of all the world's creations, human civilization. We've seen how the fires would burn and the mines would race, but what of the cities we've built, the technologies we've created, and the societies we've so carefully constructed? In a world of doubled oxygen, these would not simply be challenged. They would be rendered obsolete in a flash of fiery, chaotic reality. The first and most immediate threat to our civilization would be the catastrophic fire risk. Our world is built on the assumption of a stable 21% oxygen atmosphere. Our homes, our buildings, our factories, and our vehicles are all designed with this in mind. But in a 42% oxygen world, this entire infrastructure would be a massive, sprawling tinderbox. A simple electrical short circuit, a discarded cigarette, or a spark from a car engine, which in our world might cause a small contained fire, would in this new reality ignite an uncontrollable inferno. The very air which we once used to cool our machines and to power our combustion engines would become a dangerous accelerant. Our cities, with their dense concentrations of wood, plastic, and other flammable materials, would become literal firestorms. The fire departments, our first line of defense, would be helpless against blazes that move with the speed and intensity of a hurricane. This leads us to a profound and unsettling question that historians and futurists often ponder. Is civilization a house of cards, a delicate structure that is only as stable as the environment it is built on? We often think of our cities as permanent, our technologies as infallible, and our societies as eternal. But in our new chaotic world, this illusion would be shattered. The very foundations of our existence, the bricks and mortar of our world, would be revealed to be profoundly fragile. The great libraries, the magnificent museums, the bustling marketplaces, all would be at risk, their legacies reduced to ash in a single terrifying moment. The world's great cities would not be destroyed by war or by natural disaster. They would be consumed by the very air we breathe. A lesser-known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of oxygen sensors and fire suppression systems in controlled environments, such as in submarines and space stations. These systems are designed to precisely monitor and control the oxygen levels, because engineers know that too much oxygen is a profound risk. In these environments, even a small stray spark is a cause for a full-scale alarm. We have built our most complex and sensitive technologies with an acute awareness of the danger of high oxygen. But we have failed to apply this same caution to our entire world. Our new reality is a stark reminder of our hubris, of our assumption that the rules of a controlled environment don't apply to the chaos of the natural world. The second great challenge would be to our technology and our industry. Our entire industrial base, from steel manufacturing to oil refining, is built on processes that rely on a specific atmospheric composition. A combustion engine, for example, is designed to mix a precise amount of air and fuel to create a controlled explosion. In our new world, that explosion would become an uncontrollable detonation. The factories that produce our goods, the power plants that generate our electricity, and the vehicles that transport us all would be in a state of constant risk, their systems either failing or becoming dangerously unstable. The delicate balance of our global supply chains would be shattered, and the very foundation of our modern technological society would crumble. Our art and culture, the things that make us human, would also be profoundly affected. The great works of art, the delicate manuscripts, the priceless artifacts, all would be at risk from a world of rampant fire and accelerated decay. The very act of living, of surviving, would become a full-time job, leaving little room for the kind of quiet reflection and creative expression that we often take for granted. We would be a species in a state of constant emergency, our lives, a frantic brief sprint against a backdrop of chaos and destruction. Our society, our culture, our very way of life would be a fleeting, beautiful memory in a world that is rushing headlong into a new and terrifying future. Having explored the fate of our world and our civilization, our story now takes a flight of imagination far beyond the blue-green marble we call home. We must now turn our gaze to the silent, desolate worlds that populate our solar system, to the planets and moons that have been untouched by the fires and the chaos of our new Earth. What would they look like in a universe where the rules of chemistry have been rewritten? Our new reality is not just a change for Earth, it is a change for the cosmos. The core scientific principle we must explore is the universal nature of chemical reactions. The laws of chemistry are the same everywhere in the universe. A molecule of oxygen is a molecule of oxygen, whether it's on Earth, on Mars, or in a distant galaxy. The reaction of oxidation, the passionate embrace of fire, is a universal constant. The same principle that would turn our forests into tinder would also apply to the raw materials of other worlds. Imagine for a moment Mars, the great red planet. Right now, its atmosphere is a thin, wispy veil of mostly carbon dioxide, and its surface is a cold, dry desert of red dust. But what if our new high-oxygen atmosphere somehow reached it, a cosmic wave of change that washes over the entire solar system? The surface of Mars is rich in iron, the very thing that gives it its red color, through a slow process of oxidation or rust. In a high-oxygen environment, this process would accelerate dramatically. The red of Mars would become a deeper, more vibrant hue, a landscape of impossibly fast rust. But more importantly, the planet might finally get a chance at life. The presence of oxygen, and perhaps a small increase in temperature from a changing solar dynamic, could melt the polar ice caps, releasing the trapped water and creating a new thin atmosphere where life in its most basic forms might finally be able to take hold. A world that was once a symbol of desolation and death could become a cradle of new strange life. This brings us to a profound philosophical question that astrobiologists and astronomers still grapple with. Is life a fluke, a one-in-a-billion accident that only happened on Earth? Or is it a universal potential, a kind of seed that lies dormant everywhere waiting for the right conditions to bloom? The answer in our new high-oxygen universe might finally be revealed. We might see life in its most basic forms begin to stir on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, in the liquid methane lakes of Titan, or in the subsurface oceans of Europa. A new kind of life, an oxygen-breathing life, could emerge in places we once thought were impossible, a testament to the incredible resilience and adaptability of the cosmic seed. A lesser-known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of oxidative minerals in meteorites. Scientists have found small traces of minerals that can only be formed in the presence of oxygen in some of the oldest meteorites we've ever found. This suggests that oxygen in its pure form existed in the early solar system, even before our own planet had a chance to fully form. This is a powerful reminder that oxygen is not just a terrestrial phenomenon. It is a universal element, a character that has been a part of the cosmic story since the very beginning. Our new reality with its high oxygen levels is not just a deviation from the norm. It is a return to a more primitive, more chaotic, and more powerful version of the universe itself. And what of the gas giants, the great swirling behemoths of Jupiter and Saturn? Their atmospheres are a chaotic tapestry of hydrogen, helium, and other gases. But in a high-oxygen universe, even they would be changed. The immense pressure and temperature of their cores could lead to a whole new class of chemical reactions, a new kind of elemental dance that we've never seen before. The great storms of Jupiter, the magnificent rings of Saturn, all would be a canvas for a new kind of chemistry, a new kind of physics. The universe itself, which we once saw as a constant and unchanging backdrop, would be revealed to be a dynamic, living, and breathing thing. Our journey to the outer planets is not just a scientific thought experiment. It is a profound act of humility. It forces us to confront the idea that we, on our little blue planet, are not the center of the universe. The laws of nature, the principles of chemistry and physics are universal. And a change on our planet is a change for the entire cosmic neighborhood. Our new dangerous reality is a reminder that we are just a small part of a much larger story, a single fleeting breath in the vast, unending silence of space. With the cosmic stage set and the laws of nature revealed in their raw new form, our final turn in this journey is a quiet, reflective one. We must now turn our gaze inward to the last remnants of humanity. In a world of raging fires, colossal insects, and a biological clock set to a frantic new pace, what would become of us? We are a species of storytellers, of dreamers, of builders. But in this new reality, our story would be a fleeting one, a final poignant chapter in the history of a world that has moved on. The first and most profound change would be to our very being, our biology, and our psychology. We have already touched upon the physical dangers of oxygen toxicity, the cellular rust that would consume us from within. But there is a deeper, more subtle change that would occur. Our minds, once a marvel of quiet contemplation, would be in a state of constant frantic overstimulation. The heightened neural activity, the supercharged metabolism, would lead to an almost manic state of being. Our thoughts would race, our emotions would be amplified, and our senses would be overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of the new world. The gentle hum of our existence would be replaced by a deafening roar. This leads us to a profound philosophical question that artists and poets have pondered for centuries. Is peace of mind a luxury of a stable environment, or is it a state of being that can be achieved in any circumstance? The answer in our new world would be a tragic one. The constant danger from fire, the threat of ancient diseases, the overwhelming sensory input from a world of giants, all would conspire to make a peaceful existence impossible. We would be a species in a state of constant high alert, our bodies and minds perpetually on the edge of a panic attack. The quiet moments of reflection, the gentle intimacy of a shared conversation, the simple pleasure of a good night's sleep, all would be rendered impossible by the sheer unbridled energy of the new reality. Our very humanity in this sense would be stripped away, replaced by a raw primal state of survival. A lesser known but fascinating scientific fact is the existence of a condition called oxygen-induced euphoria in deep-sea divers. When divers descend to great depths and breathe a gas mixture with a higher concentration of oxygen, they can experience a feeling of intense happiness and a loss of inhibition. This is a temporary and very dangerous condition. In our new world, this would not be a temporary state, but a permanent one. We would be a species of euphoric manic and ultimately doomed dreamers our final moments, a beautiful, chaotic, and terrifying illusion of power and invincibility. Our minds, in a final tragic act of self-deception, would create a false sense of well-being even as our bodies fail. The final remnants of human society would not be in our sprawling cities, which would be long gone, but in small isolated communities, perhaps in underground bunkers or in controlled environments with artificially low oxygen levels. These would be a new kind of human, a kind of ghost of our former selves, living a life of constant vigilance and profound scarcity. They would be a living memory of a world that once was their stories, a testament to the beauty and the fragility of a stable planet. They would be the historians of a forgotten era, their lives dedicated to remembering a time when the air was gentle, the world was predictable, and the future was not a race against a cosmic clock. And what of our art, our culture, our stories? They would be changed too. The stories would no longer be about love or loss or hope, but about survival and struggle. The art would be a frantic, desperate expression of a world that is moving too fast to be captured. The music would be a loud, chaotic cacophony, a mirror of the world outside. The very idea of a shared culture would be a distant memory replaced by a multitude of smaller, isolated stories, each a desperate attempt to make sense of a world that has become a stranger to itself. Our legacy would not be our great monuments or our magnificent achievements, but the fleeting whispers of a species that was undone by the very thing that gave it life. We would be a final, beautiful, and tragic reminder of the precious, delicate balance of existence. Our journey, a long and winding one, has now reached its end. We have seen the world reborn in a flash of impossible fire, watched as the oceans bloomed with a new chaotic life, and listened to the silent, frantic hum of cells working at an unsustainable pace. We have witnessed the birth of new minds and the tragic, beautiful end of a civilization. It was a story of a world both glorious and terrifying, a world where the very air that gives life also brings death. But as our story comes to a close, we must take a moment to step back to put away the vivid images of a hypothetical world and to return to the quiet, gentle reality of our own. The final scientific principle we must reflect upon is the principle of cosmic rarity. This is the idea, a humbling and profound one, that the existence of a planet like ours, with its delicate balance of atmosphere, water, and temperature, is not a given. It is a rare and precious gift. The 21% oxygen in our air is not a random number. It is the result of billions of years of cosmic and biological history, a perfect and fragile compromise between fire and life. The dinosaurs walked on a planet with a different atmosphere, and the earliest microbes lived in a world where oxygen was a poison. Our world, our time, is a fleeting, beautiful moment in this long, dramatic story. And the fact that we are here, that we are able to breathe this very air, is a profound and beautiful mystery. It is a reminder that we are not just passive observers of this cosmic story. We are a part of it. This leads us to a final, gentle, and quiet philosophical question. In the face of a universe of infinite possibilities, what is the true value of the here and now? We have spent so much time imagining a world that is fast, chaotic, and dangerous. But our own world is slow, patient, and for the most part, stable. The grass you might be lying on is not on fire. The insects are not the size of a cat. The air you are breathing is a gentle, life-giving gift. We are here in this moment, in this beautiful, stable world, and that is a miracle in itself. The story we've told is a powerful reminder of how precious our reality is and how easily it could be lost. A lesser-known but beautiful scientific fact is the concept of the Goldilocks zone in planetary science. This is the region around a star where a planet can have liquid water on its surface. But our story has shown us that there is also a kind of atmospheric Goldilocks zone for life, a perfect balance of gases that allows for complex, intelligent life to exist. Our planet, our atmosphere, is in that zone. It is a delicate balance, one that has been hard-won over billions of years. And our story, our little thought experiment, is a testament to how easily that balance can be tipped. The world we have explored together, the world of doubled oxygen, is a world of possibility. It is a world that shows us the incredible resilience and adaptability of life, but it is also a world of profound danger, a world of chaos and destruction. It is a world that is in a way too alive. Our own world with its gentle rhythms and its quiet stability is a world that is just right. It is a world where we can lie on the grass, look up at the blue sky, and take a deep breath without a single thought of danger. And that, in itself, is the most beautiful story of all. And so we bring our journey to a close. The world of fire and giants, of frantic growth and sudden decay, begins to gently fade from your mind. The images once so vivid now feel like the distant echoes of a forgotten dream. The roar of the fire becomes a gentle whisper, the hum of the giant insects, a soft, lulling murmur. The chaotic dance of the atoms, once so frantic now, slows to a peaceful, steady rhythm. The story has been told, the questions have been asked, and the journey is over. I'd like to gently ask one last time, where is the place you're staying now? The time in that place at this very moment, how is it flowing? Whether you're in the deep quiet of the night or the soft glow of a new dawn, I hope this little journey has given you a moment of peace, a moment to reflect on the quiet, profound beauty of the world we're lucky enough to inhabit. The air you are breathing is a gentle, life-giving gift, and the world outside your window in all its simplicity is the most magnificent thing of all. Take a deep, slow breath and feel the quiet presence of your own existence. If you enjoyed our time together, please consider subscribing. It helps me create more stories like this for you. But for now, let the thoughts drift away like clouds on a calm day. Sleep well, my companion. Wherever and whenever you are, sweet dreams.